Is $60 billion enough money for Ukraine to push back Russia decisively?
Well, we hope so. It's actually only 0.2% of our gross domestic product. So put in that context, it's not a whole lot of money for us.
Yeah, it's not a whole lot of money. It's not even a whole lot of money for us. Why are you worried about it? Do you have a side hustle now? Second job, delivering food for Uber on the weekends, trying to pay your phone bill? $60 billion isn't a lot of money. Why are you worried about it? And will it work? I don't know. We hope so. Joining me now, Jeremy Carl, author of the new book, The Unprotected Class. Jeremy, it blows me away that in a supposed representative republic, nobody, Democrat, Republican, nobody in leadership has any care in the world about what normal people are going through. It just never crosses their mind.
Yeah, absolutely, Jesse. But I don't know. I mean, does it really blow you away? I see you on X all the time, and you're correct. I mean, you're totally right to be that angry, but it's like, the 50th time that Charlie Brown has the football pulled away from him, you sort of are like, yeah, maybe we can't trust Lucy here. And Mitch McConnell's the ultimate Lucy. I mean, he's always, from the moment he said Ukraine aid should be the first priority. I mean, he calls himself a Reagan Republican, but he really, he was elected first in the Ford era, and he's really just kind of a dinosaur. But unfortunately, that dinosaur has really been leading the party, and he's got, unfortunately, as we know from the secret ballot Senate reelection that he still has most of the caucus behind him. Although I think finally this immigration bill, where he absolutely sandbagged every single one of our Senate candidates and President Trump's reelection kind of campaign, was finally maybe the straw that broke the camel's back there.
Can you explain why, for people who don't understand how leadership works, how could somebody who routinely torpedoes Republican priorities constantly get the backing of the majority of Republicans in the Senate? It doesn't make sense, Jeremy.
Well, Jesse, it only doesn't make sense if you think that the Republicans in the Senate as a whole have any interest in the voters' priorities. And if you think that they do, then it would be very mysterious. But if you think they're just out to mostly kind of enrich themselves or kind of play the DC game, then it makes total sense. And I want to back off in saying that we do have a number of good Republican senators, and we had about 10 to 12 senators who voted against McConnell in his last reelect. And I think there are probably a few others who didn't, who still would kind of, maybe they didn't love Rick Scott, the alternative, but they still thought that there were better people than Mitch McConnell. So it's not that we don't have anybody, but the whole game is rigged. You look at Mitch McConnell, one of the worst things he's done as leader over many, many years is that he's controlled our reelect process. So he's controlling what type of senators even get nominated for our party. And he makes sure that there are those who are going to toe the establishment line and not cause trouble for him.
Mitch McConnell's about to leave, and what I'm about to say, I find it so physically painful. John Cornyn is probably going to be the one who replaces him. This would be John Cornyn, this John Cornyn.
Hi, I'm Texas Senator John Cornyn. The last year has proven quite a challenge as we've navigated the impact of COVID-19. But with safe and effective vaccines finally being administered, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Getting vaccinated is the fastest way that life can return to normal.
Jeremy, you say that it's rigged, but here I sit in Texas, in this state that everyone loves to tell us is very red, and it is red. Obviously, it goes red every election. And yet our worst senators are from states like Texas, both Dakotas, Louisiana, South Carolina, Wyoming suck, Utah, what are you doing? You say it's rigged, but the GOP primary voter is given choices, and I checked last time John Cornyn was up for re-election, 76% of the primary vote. Jeremy, I think we have a voter problem.
Well, we do, Jesse, and you've said this yourself, and I admire you for your boldness on Twitter and not letting our own voters and even the folks who are following your account, of whom there are many, escape accountability. It's all fine and well to complain about the McConnells and the Cornyns, and they're absolutely awful. but we are reelecting these folks. I mean, I think the mitigating factor, of course, is that a challenger to those guys needs money, et cetera, et cetera. They need access to elite networks. It's very hard to get that when the whole might of the GOP apparatus is against you. But at the end of the day, that's not a sufficient excuse. We need to be paying attention. And in some states where we are paying attention, we do have better results. And in fact, sort of Mike Lee was elected over the incumbent Senator Bennett, who had been horrible through Utah's kind of unique process. And I now think that we are going to replace Romney, absolutely. I mean, probably the worst GOP senator out there. I don't even know we can call him GOP, quite honestly. Hopefully with Trent Staggs. And he was a guy who I'd supported very early, but had no money, but had a lot of key grassroots guys behind him. And then Trump swept in right before the convention and endorsed him, and he won that convention endorsement. And I'm hopeful and optimistic now that he can be the nominee. But we sort of need better processes. We need better primary voters to be paying attention. Guys like Cornyn, who've done gun grabbing, who are fighting with the Texas Attorney General, who is actually a conservative hero. It's mind-boggling, and I'm just hopeful. I mean, that we are going to have a better selection than either Cornyn or Thune, who is almost as bad as Cornyn for the next cycle. I think it's really, really important that President Trump, especially if he is in office, really weighs in and puts his thumb on the scales in that race to get somebody who he could actually work with on voter priorities.
Yeah, I'm glad you actually brought up Thune, because I didn't just want to focus on the useless human barnacle that is John Cornyn. John Thune, if it's not Cornyn, it's going to be Thune, leading the United States Senate. A senator, when asked to defend your right to own an AR-15, the best argument he could come up with was that some people in his state use them for prairie dogs. We seriously can't get anyone who can speak about freedom elected into leadership. Is the game that rigged that's how it works, Jeremy?
Well, I'm afraid it often is. And as you point out, I mean, South Dakota is one of the most conservative states. It's one of the most conservative voting areas. I think sometimes people look at folks like Thune or Romney, and they kind of look like they're the casting call GOP senators, the square jaw, and they kind of, slightly rugged handsomeness, like they sort of say, oh, that's what a kind of masculine, tough GOP senator should look like, who's standing for America first. And meanwhile, these guys are just selling America down the river left and right. Cornyn Flake, there's another disaster of one. Thankfully, we got rid of him. But Thune has been an absolute kind of a disaster as a senator. He has been Mitch McConnell's kind of right hand for a lot of the worst things that he's done. He has been he's tried to undermine Trump on many occasions. He was kind of very waffling on the impeachment issue. And it's just incredibly frustrating that we are kind of fooled by these appearances and continue to kind of put forward these guys who are really just not following what we want them to do at all.